Hi, this is Terry Bach, and welcome to It's My Time Now, How to Redesign Your Life on Your Terms. As women over 50, it's kind of like we're coming out of a fog or we're starting to wake up and we're realizing that it's my time now. Maybe you've been taking care of everybody else in your life or your job or your business, but you haven't necessarily been taking very good care of yourself. So, a lot of times in our earlier life, we'll think about these things that we wanted to do through our life. And maybe at this point in your life, that hasn't happened yet. Or maybe it's changed a lot from when you were younger. Or maybe you just don't know what you want this next part of your life to look like yet. So I have brought together some amazing experts on the topic of women over 50 and redesigning their lives on their terms. Now, each of our experts are going to be talking about this from their own specific and unique point of view. And today I've invited Jerry Anathan as our expert. Jerry's dynamic coaching style is a result of her passion and expertise in motivation, neuroscience, learning, and her personal presence. Her clients describe her as an astute listener, excuse me, engaged growth partner, and completely authentic. She has an uncanny ability to ask questions that provoke new ways of thinking. After a dozen years in the real estate, brokerage, and development field, Jerry did a 180-degree turn, selling her business and opening a yoga studio, which she loved, but missed the energy around helping people get what they want in the business and professional development world. Coaching was a natural pivot and meshes perfectly with her lifestyle. Having learned for herself what it takes to achieve I can't ever say this word, unapologetic fulfillment, she relishes in helping others do the same. So welcome, Jerry.
Thank you so much, Terry, for that terrific introduction. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit more about your background?
Sure. So as you read, like I was working in a lot of, well, first of all, I grew up with a single father and two younger sisters. And I think, him sort of being my role model and also my grandfather being a role model, they were both in business. And so even as a little kid, I would try to kind of bond with them over trying to be a little adult and really trying to kind of, put on that business hat. And so that was sort of the beginning, the like late, early teens all the way through college and even after college. I worked for a law firm right out of college and then went into business and was really not at all happy in the corporate world. I didn't realize how much the confidence that I lacked at that time was really apparent. And I didn't have the experience of what I now call psychological safety, which is something that I work in a lot. So long story short, in 2008, when the real estate market crashed, I took a month off and went to a yoga teacher training and really fell in love with the yogic philosophy and the history of yoga and all those roots, and really learned like how easy it is to sort of become centered if we continue to work on those principles. And so I opened a yoga studio here in Provincetown, Massachusetts, and loved running the business, loved doing yoga, didn't love teaching it so much, but it was more the business aspect and providing this center where people could come in and do yoga. For me, it's such a special thing that teaching it kind of took me out of the magic of it. So I'm more of a student when it comes to that kind of thing.
Okay.
Yeah. And then there was something kind of missing with the yoga world, even though it was running a small business. I missed interacting with people on a really deep level or kind of getting to know what was going on with them. And having done some coach training and then really digging a lot deeper into coach training, it just became like this natural pivot for me around 2012. And as the years have gone on, I'm now more working with organizations and people in leadership, but I save like 25% of my time to work with individuals, typically women over 50, because I just think there's so much that we didn't get when we were younger,
Yes.
because of the times and that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Messages I think a lot of us got growing up that somehow we're responsible for everybody else, or, relationships
Yeah.
and family and all of that, that there isn't a lot of room or time left for us.
So true. So true. We're kind of trying to be a certain type of person when we're not really even fully aware of who we truly are inside.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was really what drew me to coaching, just sort of the ability to work with the theories that I've studied, motivation, or how do we feel more happy? How do we become higher performing? And so, yeah, I'm very happy doing it. I never regretted a moment of it.
Okay, that's great. That's great.
Yeah.
It's when you finally figure out what it is you want to do with your life.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
are there any things that you wish you had known when you were getting started?
Yeah, I think, the number one thing, probably even when I started with coaching, was you're stepping into this. I'm a coach, but when we stop being our authentic selves, I
Yes.
think that's where we go off the trail. And especially over 50, or soon I'll be over 60. There's this other part of us that says, wait a minute, who am I trying to please here? Like, my new thing is, if you want to get a crew cut, go get a crew cut. If you want to learn to hike the Appalachian Trail by yourself, go do it. There's nothing holding you back. And if there is, or someone or something, is it possible to work through that? If it's something that you want, life is so amazing in that truly we put on our own self limitations.
Exactly.
Typically,
yes.
Typically it's not someone else. And I don't know, are you familiar with the Mary Oliver poem called Wild Geese?
I think so. Yes.
Yeah. There's, at the beginning, it's so amazing. It says, you do not have to be good. You do not have to walk on your knees for 100 miles through the desert. You only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves.
Oh,
And
wow.
I just think I get chills because I think of, haven't we all been kind of walking through the desert?
Exactly.
Whether we're repenting or feeling bad about something we did, or we could have done more. And it is our time. And I love, Terry, that, this is really about people embracing their own lives. I think what you're doing is fantastic.
Yeah, I think, I had my own awakening too after my mom died, and suddenly it's like, I'm not really responsible for anybody now. And,
Yeah.
now is my time, and I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. And so it took me doing a lot of soul searching and figuring out what the next part of my life, what I wanted that to look like.
That's fantastic. Yeah. I think I always thought, oh, getting older is going to be so terrible and so scary. And actually, I think things open up in a different way.
I do too.
But it's like, whoo.
I know every decade I get more excited because it's just, age has never been a big deal to me. I just think, like, I'm over 60 now, and I think I know so many women who have done so much in their 60s and 70s and even 80s. My mom at 98. So
wow.
I just figure, I feel sad for women in particular who are in their 60s and they're already old.
Yeah.
I think that's so sad to me because they could have another, 30, 40 years left.
Exactly.
Really? Yeah.
And I would imagine anyone who's really listening to this is one of those people who says, I can make changes to make my life better and feel like I'm completely thriving.
Absolutely.
And vital. And we're very, very fortunate.
And I'm bringing experts together like you to help people, give them ideas or methods, to make those things happen. So
yeah, it's Great.
I know that with coaching, there's a lot of methodologies, there's a lot of, schools and viewpoints and all of that kind of stuff.
Right.
What are your top 3 go-tos when you're working with clients?
That's a great question. I've had such a variety of sort of education, and I think some of us are certification junkies, and I've certainly
Right?
been that person.
Yeah.
So I'm very kind of astute to everything from subconscious thought to organizational behavior. I'm doing a master's program at Harvard Extension School at the moment in organizational psychology. So all of these things kind of blend together to one big thing to me, which is how do we become more fulfilled as humans? So I think my 3 go-tos, the one thing that I'm very involved in now is a term called, or a concept called, psychological safety. And that's basically what it sounds like, but it's truly the ability to show up as you are at your workplace or in groups without any fear of retaliation if you bring up a concern or a mistake or a question. And in organizations and even with individuals right now, it kind of falls into what we're talking about. Like, we should be okay to bring these problems up. So
Yes.
I love working with that. It's all based on about 3 decades of research by Amy Edmondson, who's with Harvard and was with MIT as well. I also, I think you mentioned in my bio, I'm sort of a neuroscience junkie. And so because of that, what it means to me is that when I'm working with someone and I'm able to explain why certain behaviors or fears or hesitations are coming up, if I can explain exactly what's going on in the brain and in the nervous system, in your body, it kind of gives us this aha moment. Like, it's not us, it's our brains,
Right. Right.
And we can change those patterns or those habituated pathways. So
it doesn't even take that much to rewire the brain.
Exactly.
Amazing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes, it really is. It really is. It's incredible.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
So how do you think, I know you
yeah.
work a lot with organizations and groups and companies and all there, but how do you think you can help our listeners who may or may not be in that category?
Right. So when I first started out, I was doing a lot more sort of life coachy type things. And so one of the models or frameworks that I studied and use with most of my clients, even my one-on-one clients, is based on Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs from the 1940s. And I'm glad we have this time left to just sort of go over how I work with people. So this new kind of finagled concept around the 6 human needs is what I do is I work with the clients one-on-one and go through each of these 6 needs, and I'll talk about them in a moment. And as we look at those needs, usually 1 or 2 really resonate with an individual. And so we take a look at what those are, and we kind of fill in the gap if that need isn't getting met. And so I'll just go over those needs. The first one is certainty. And that would be, you have a roof over your head, that your meal is, you're not starving. You have a sense of safety. Maybe you're relying a lot on your family. Someone who's very attached to certainty might be a very routinized person. They like things to be lined up so they have, they know what's coming, and that's great. On the opposite of that is variety. So
this is different than I've heard before. I know the hierarchy of needs from Maslow, but
this is very different. This is a concept that got really finagled over time by some kind of well-known coaches.
Interesting.
And I think the way I use it with people is maybe a little different than others have used it. But it really, it's one of those things that I sometimes you get involved in a framework or a methodology and it's like, it works a little bit, but you don't hang on to it. This one I think is really fantastic.
Okay, so I interrupted you. So certainty and then
No, that's okay.
and is
So we've got
variety.
certainty on the one side and then variety on the
Okay.
other side. So variety would be someone who really loves to seek adventure. They don't want to be in a routine. You know, they like to
Okay.
have all different types of things to eat.
Sure.
They might like to travel. And so variety can be good, but it can also be bad because people might have more danger in their lives, or be thrill seekers, or a little bit not conscientious about how much variety they're taking in their lives.
Right.
Typically, people who want too much variety, they're a little more difficult to pin down. And there's nothing wrong with either certainty or variety, but they're just on either side of the scale.
So it's
and
good
you might
to
notice
be somewhere in the middle or somewhere in between.
Yeah. But
Okay.
sometimes people are like, oh, I didn't realize how much I am attached to my certainty, or wow, I didn't realize I was so attached to variety. So it's more just about the insights that we get through this.
Okay.
You might also notice that certainty is more of an inner sense, an inner feeling. And I don't want to say introvert, but it's sort of like a more safe feeling. Whereas variety is sort of you're way outside, and it usually typically can be a very exterior experience.
Exactly. Okay.
Yeah. So then we move on to the next set of sort of opposing needs. And one of them is significance. And people who are attached to significance really like to be either in the limelight, or it's important to them to be acknowledged for the good job they've done. It's important to feel that they are different and that they stand out. And that's great too. There's nothing wrong again with that. But let's look at that. And again, this is something that's more inside. We're thinking about our sort of it's intrinsically motivated a little bit. It's about ourselves. On the opposite side of that is the need or desire for love and connection. So that would be people who really are thriving on their relationships with others, with pets, with plants, with nature. There's something soft and loving about that, and it typically involves others. So we're not necessarily inside. Of course, we love ourselves, but we're really on the outside, loving things that are around us, maybe belief system, but it is about that.
Okay, about connection.
So far we've covered. Yeah, exactly, connection. Okay. So far we've talked about certainty, variety, significance, and love and connection. And those four fall under what you would call personality needs, more about our personalities. And then these next two needs are more spiritual needs. Okay. So one is growth, in that we're wanting to learn and absorb. I think a lot of coaches have been down that road, or really wanting to grow and help other people grow. And both of these are good. Growth is great. We all know what it's like. If you're listening to this, you're probably like, oh, what could I learn from this today? Maybe I'll grow even just a percentage by listening to something different. And then the other side of that is contribution. How do we give to the world, to our communities, to our families and loved ones? So neither of these are really competing against each other. I often combine them together because they're higher needs for sure. And so when I work with a client, we do a deep dive into each of these needs so that I can assess, or they can self-assess, what is important, or maybe, wow, I didn't realize this was important to me, but my needs, I'm not really getting met here. For someone who really wants variety, boy, COVID wasn't a really good time for them because they were on lockdown. No kidding. So, wow, let's put a plan together and figure out what type of variety are you looking for, and how can we gently build that into your life so that you are getting that need met and feeling centered and grounded and happy. And that's just an example. Okay. And then lastly, Terry, what's so neat is that I will typically have my client think of a situation that is not pleasant for them. And we walk through the scenario of this unpleasant or negative perceived situation. And we walk through each of the 6 needs. So I'll give you an example.
Okay.
When I was a yoga teacher, I was in New York, living in New York half time. And I had a wonderful older woman client who was in her 80s, late 80s, and she was terrific. And I was teaching her one-on-one yoga 2 times a week. And I loved it, but it was, at the time I was really launching a lot of coaching. So I felt like I didn't have a lot of time. I had to take the subway. I was doing it for, of course, a very low fee because that made me feel better. But it was just so much, it was snowing, it was raining, and didn't feel, I just realized I was getting resentful. And then to reframe it, I walked through these 6 needs. So I'll just rattle the story. So
okay.
Certainty. I knew what I was doing 2 days a week during these particular hours. Variety. How often would I get to be around an 88-year-old woman and exercise with her?
No
that
kidding.
Is like variety. And plus I could be on the subway and look at different people and maybe take a different route if I wanted to walk. I could see all the seasons and the different people. Significant. It made me feel special that she trusted me to work with her around her physical and emotional needs. And I also definitely felt love and connection with her and her family and her dog and her environment. I personally grew through it for sure. And I think she did too. And then I was definitely feeling a sense of contribution by really helping her maintain her longevity and her flexibility and that kind of thing.
Right.
So this is like a super fast forward on how this.
No, but that makes sense. It makes total sense. You get into a situation where maybe you're feeling resentful or whatever kind of emotion, and then you want to kind of assess, I guess, through the 6 needs.
Yes.
To see where you are. And maybe and then I would imagine that changed your attitude after.
It sure did. It was a real reset. It really was a reset. And I think for myself, I did it as an example to help my clients think of a situation, but I didn't realize the benefits it would have for me, because from then on, I was, wow, I'm so lucky that I get to do this.
So really let's take the situation where it didn't come out so positively. Let's say when you did that assessment for yourself, I'm not sure how it would not be positive here. Let's say in one of these, you felt like you weren't like contributing or connected or something, then what would you do with that?
I've had that situation happen too. Similarly, again, with yoga, where when I was teaching at the studio and running back and forth and buying mats and, managing all of it, I just realized this isn't what I expected from this. This is not how I wanted this to be. And that's upsetting because I feel badly, like what's wrong with me that I don't love this. And I was working with a coach, and I can't remember exactly how she asked the question, but I tried to run through these and I was hitting walls. And she totally changed my life, because she just said, the simple coaching question, what could you do differently? What's the worst thing that would happen if you stopped teaching? And I was, wow, that would be, what do you mean? How would I? And then I figured it out. I was easily able to step more into the manager, go and take other people's classes, bring more teachers in. It ended up being so much better. But I was stuck on my, my ingrained thought system that I could never not teach. It's my studio. It's our studio,
Right.
So I think what that does when you can't find the good, wow, you really know it's time to change. And you're just wasting your own time or torturing yourself by staying in a situation that isn't benefiting you.
Or I would think that, on one of these, I'm looking at my notes here, that if it comes out short in one of these needs, that you could also tweak it, tweak the situation so it might fulfill that need a little bit better.
Yes. And I think that's where it's really helpful to have a thinking partner or a coach to kind of suss those
Sure.
things out,
Yeah.
soundboard it, or ping ideas around, kind of brainstorm it. Because there are
Wow.
solutions to
Yeah.
everything. And when we're not feeling right inside, it's often something's missing. We're either
Right.
overwhelmed, something's missing, and it's we as coaches, fortunately, are really good at diagnosing, the diagnostics of what's not going well here, and we've got to fix it.
Exactly. Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely. And this is a
yeah,
great assessment tool, but you're right. It, often takes somebody else to see things. Like I could do
yeah.
this and may not pick out something that if I were working with you, you would see.
Right.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
And getting back to the over 50 thing, I think we have to remember that we need to stop making excuses for not being happy. And that's where this
Right.
mind shift really is so important, to just be so empathetic with ourselves and give
Yes.
ourselves a lot of love and permission to make these changes.
I think sometimes it's the awareness that we're not happy. Like in my situation when, I was very happy to take care of my mom for the last several years. And I mean, I moved back here to do that. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, but but then after she died, I started assessing my life thinking, I have really been so focused on her that I haven't been living my life to some degree. I mean, there were things I had given up. And so I had to have that awareness that I didn't want to continue doing the way I had been doing my life. Something had to shift for me.
Right.
And I
Right.
think not everybody's willing or able to get that awareness that something needs to change. They
You're right. It's that
to
line between
that.
resignation, where, oh, well, this
Yeah,
is the way it's going to
exactly.
be. And that, this is the way it's going to be. And that makes sense because I'm getting older. No, and we've got
Right.
to get that out of our brainstem.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
Okay, so Jerry, I know you have a free gift. If you want to tell us about that.
Yeah. So the free gift, I went over this so quickly today. What the free gift is an ebook, and it's more of like an exercise. So I'll much more thoroughly explain the methodology here, each of the 6 needs, a little bit more detail. And then there will be an exercise that each of you can do on your own, sort of a Q&A,
Okay.
walking through this as a workbook. It's hard to self-reflect and give yourself the permission to be honest about your needs. And so I would suggest taking an hour to yourself, maybe going outside into a park or just being somewhere very isolated and comfortable and wonderful for yourselves while you do this, and give yourself that time and see what you come up with. And then,
Right.
if you want to send me an email and kind of bounce ideas around from there, if there's next steps, great. And if not, what I hope is that you can take from this some ideas and a better assessment and understanding, and sort of reframe some of the things that are not working and put into an action plan, what steps you need to take and
Okay.
how you do that. So I think it will be a super helpful self-coaching exercise. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
Thank you. And for the audience,
Sure.
again, all you need to do is click on the button below the video, and that'll take
Yeah.
you right to Jerry's free gift. Okay, so Jerry,
Yeah.
thank you so much for being here. I really enjoyed this. I was back.
Me too, Terry. It went so fast.
It did. It really
I wish I
did.
could be there and like sit with you during all of your interviews, because I can see how you really have the ability to open people up, and it's great.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
And thank you to the audience too for being here as part of It's My Time Now mini summit. And be sure you stay tuned for our next interview, where another expert will be sharing her unique point of view about redesigning and living life on your terms. I'll see you soon. Bye for now.
Thanks, everyone.